Hi, hi. So, um, so this video is for those of you who are doing the assignment. And really, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the process that I use for really sort of getting variety in light and shadow in a painting, because I think when you have really great light in a painting, it's really a great opportunity for you to get a lot of color variety. And in particular, the more places in a painting that you can play off warm and cools against each other and darks and lights, to me, the more interesting your painting is. So I really think the bottom line is really just your close observation of these things. Even if you didn't know anything, if you just did a very close observation, you probably would get some of this. But I wanted to just talk in terms of, this is the photo I'm going to use, and I wanted to just talk about some of the ways that light changes, the different kinds of light, what you would see, so that you can be aware of that when you paint. Also, I'm going to show you how I sort of get some clarity on that. And what I do is I do something called a color patch study. For those of you who've been with me before, studied with me, you've done this, but I think it's a very useful thing. So I do this on just plain copy paper, and I might do many of these, as many as I feel like, to be able to play with how do I want to change the colors, and push them. So I find this is very useful, because if you just take the photos, the colors in the photo, it really won't be quite as interesting. So I'm going to do a little bit of a color patch study. Maybe then there's the job of how do you translate these beautiful colors into layers of a watercolor. So I'm going to also do a little bit of a study as well, to show you that next step. So I'm just going to do a piece of the color patch study so that I can show you more of the watercolor process part. So first thing I like to do when I look at a photo, I like to sort of find all of the different variations of color, and in particular warm and cool. So the first thing I look at are the highlights in a painting, or the lightest areas. And if I look, it's here, and it's here, and it's here. And where light first strikes something, usually it bleaches the tone out, and usually that manifests as a cool color. So to me, this has either a grayish or even a bluish feel to it relative to the rest here. And then the other thing that you get as light starts to move into shadow, the color becomes more saturated, which you see here. This image is backlit, so that kind of presents even more beautiful range of color, because things become very saturated when they're backlit. But you have this beautiful, cool light that transitions into a warmer color, and where then it sort of moves into where the light really touches the object, it kind of reveals its true color. So if you look at these leaves here and here and here, this is all illuminated, and it's a very pure but pale green. And I think the important thing to note is that as you move into the different kinds of shadows, whether it's the shadow on an object that gives it volume, or a cast shadow, those shadows usually shift into much darker and duller colors. And you can really see that in here and in here. They're often cool. So, and especially cast shadows. Cast shadows usually are in the blue family. So by being able to have the blues in the highlights, or the cool tones in the highlights, some blues in the cast shadows, then the warmer, darker shadows that you see here, you get tremendous color variety. So, and then the last kind of a shadow that you get that is, I think, is the best kind, is what's called a reflected light shadow. And that's where light from a nearby object bounces back onto the shadow. So here you can see kind of this golden orange color on the edge of the leaves that's from the yellow nasturtium. And let's see what else. And you get a little bit of a green feel here because I think all of these greens are kind of coloring a little bit this rock. So those are pretty much the different shadows. I think you can see a very cool tone here. So then the last thing I just wanted to mention before I begin is when you have a photograph, usually the lights are a little too light and the darks are a little too dark, so you need to adjust those. So I'm going to think about how can I adjust these colors rather. And I'm also looking at is this dark warm or is it cool? And my feeling is it really, even though it's very dark, it gets a little warm gold. There's almost like a gold undertone moving into a blue here. You may or may not see that. We'll see. And then I want to lighten some of the shadows over here. I'm going to edit this a little. It's a little too confusing. So anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do a little piece of this for the color patch, just so you can see the process. But this would be kind of almost a finished color patch study. I'm going to maybe do a little more on that too. Okay. Oops. All right. So again, just a little piece of this is what I'm going to do. Let's see if I can crop it off. This sort of gives me a little bit of everything. It isn't, I would normally do a little more, but this is just to give you the idea of the process. I mean, I would show a little more of the image, so. But this gives me really like kind of a little bit of everything. So that's kind of a good, it has it has this rock color, which I'm interested in, the wood, and some of the darks. So I think it has some really great colors in it. And I don't even try to draw this well because for me, my objective is to do this quickly so that I can access it in my intuitive. And I'm changing just a little bit of, it's not quite in the right place. Okay. But that's the gist. Okay. All right. So I guess I will do more, but I'm not going to draw all of this over here. Okay. And in terms of where you start, you really can start anywhere. I think there's two ways that you can think about starting. One is just start from any place where the pairings of colors are interesting to you and work from that point and keep thinking about each adjacent color. So if I do this first, I'm next going to do this, then this, and that allows you to really look at each color in turn and think about and really see it. So I like that way a lot. Another way though is you could place in all similar tones. So I could start by placing in some of these highlights. Okay, so here goes. Okay. And I think I'm going to do the latter approach because, yeah, I'm going to do the approach the first way I said, where I'm going to just paint the objects and then what's around it, because I'm particularly interested in this color over here. It's really beautiful. All right. And I'm going to clean this up, this palette, a little bit. So I'm looking, when I really look at this, I see a little bit of a yellow green here, and it shifts into a blue green. For the time being, I'm going to ignore the veins. I'm maybe going to leave those white. So I'm using a lot of this lemon yellow, which I think is a great yellow for this, with a touch of red and a touch of maybe Windsor green. Actually, a touch of this cadmium. So to do this process though, I'm not really thinking much about what colors would I actually use in a painting. So I'm not really trying to be cohesive. I'm just trying to get something in that's interesting to me. And I note that the color shifts as it moves to the back. All right, so that's very roughly. And this another, since I have this green all mixed, I'm going to do the color here right above it. And I see sort of a little bright edge to that leaf, so that I'm going to go ahead and put in. And then it shifts into a different kind of a yellow green. Okay. So I'm a little deviating from what I said because I have all this nice color that I don't want to waste. So I want to get maybe the stem in next. But each thing I'm putting in, I am thinking a little bit about how is each color different from what the previous color is. Hope that makes some sense. It's a nice kind of pink edge here that you probably can't see, but I can. And let's see. Well, I think I'll just move into this rock because I love this play of this almost blue violet with that green. And what's really nice about working on this paper is that it dries very quickly, so you can really just keep painting, unlike a regular watercolor where you have to really pay attention. And just because I like this kind of color, I'm going to use it because I think it's nice. And I'm noticing also how it shifts. It just moves a little more warmer and beige as it moves to the other side. Okay. And then I'm looking at this, which to me has a very peachy quality to it. Peachy beige. I think also naming colors for me really helps. I use a lot of the three primaries, like Windsor Blue, Permanent Rose, and the cadmiums. And I find that gives me a really nice range of color. So this is just this light part. Gets very luminous down here. Then since I'm working now adjacently, I'm just going to get this finish this sort of really lovely cast shadow. And to my eye, it gets a little cooler as it moves down here. So I'll start with that. Okay. This is that nice kind of greenish gray. And I want to really kind of gold it up over here. All right. But I find this is, it may not be a good process for everyone, but I just find this is very restful, and it's a great way to just relax and think about the colors in your painting and get almost like getting to know them. It's to me, it's a little bit like if you were putting a play on and you had to do a rehearsal. You wouldn't just invite the whole audience to the play without rehearsing. So this is a little bit of a rehearsal or just thinking about things. So I'm again just looking at adjacent colors, but just because I have all this green, I'm gonna go with that. So I'm over here right now. And I already put this kind of pink color on the edge. Then I see sort of a little bit of a bluish color, which I just want to make it that way anyways, even if it's not exactly right. And then this beautiful kind of golden green with cadmium yellow, medium, and a smidge of hooker's green to get this gold color right here. Okay. And maybe just one more thing, which would be this color here. And again, all the while I'm just really looking at how is each color vary from what's next to it. And I'm looking for opportunities to play off warms and cools. So this little hint of turquoise here that I want to put in. And it's exaggerated, but that's why it's so fun to do a sketch like this. Okay. And I'm only going to do a little bit more. I'm just going to get the flower in and maybe some of the darks. And I'm going to use two yellows, a lemon for the bottom, which really gives it a little bit more vibrancy. Here's another good example of kind of where the shadow gets cooler. The tone almost goes into a mauve. Not quite, but and it's duller for sure. So that's kind of that shadow. Okay, so last up is just getting a little bit of the background in, just so you can see this. And I'm just going to put something in really dark so I can kind of rush ahead. Okay. But this is, to me, the most exciting part is getting in, you know, getting these pairings of darks to lights. But you can see how vivid now the flower looks. I'm using a lot of brown with cadmium orange. almost done. So that was sort of a artistic license, taking a pairing, making this a little bluer. Maybe even bring a little bit of purple in here. Oh, that's nice. Okay. But you can see how, my objective was really just sort of looking at particularly how can I make these things glow. So for me, this was very useful to do, but you have to gauge if it's useful for you or not. And then, let's see, this would be the finished, this is sort of a finished one. Maybe not quite. Okay. That's better. Okay. So now I'm just going to go to an actual painting. I saved some time by drawing this out. Oh my goodness, where is it? Oh, I did it vertical. Okay, there we go. All right. And I need to excuse myself to change some water. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. So it's kind of, this time I want to do a study that I think about how would I actually paint this? Like, what would the layers be? So I'm thinking about, could this color be underneath this? Could, what do I build? I feel this gold color could be really underneath all of this over here. So that I'm going to maybe do first. And it's also arbitrary. I think if I were painting this, I would probably paint each leaf separate. But I think another way that you could do this is just put in the light tones everywhere, and then come back and put in some darks. And that would be a little more interpretive, as would this. But I'm going to wet with water where I'm putting the gold. Well, the yellow. Pretty much. Okay. Oops. So all of this will have that really nice kind of gold color. The yellow gold, I should say. Okay. And because I already did this before, I already have a little bit of a sense of what I want to do with the color. And of course this is going to dry 2 shades lighter. This is another example of a cooler highlight. This is almost like a pink tone, and the yellow shifts towards greenish, so I'm going to mix a little lemon into it and a smidge of blue for that tone. Bring that up. Okay. Then I think the bottom has a really nice lemon. You can see how that enlivens, really beautifully enlivens the yellow up here. not going to put too much of that orange in yet because I don't really want it to run. But maybe just a smidge down here. Okay. Then I'm going to just let this beautiful yellow color kind of drift down into here, into this leaf here, and down all the way into here. And then I'm going to bring a little blue in here. So that's kind of how that would be one way I might start this. I'm going to do something else so down here. This leaf, there's a lot of variety also on this leaf. I'm going to use a little clear water just to wet it and try to save some of these veins for later. But I'm trying to get this really pretty shift in color. Okay. There. That's just like a first pass on this nice green. Okay, just a little more on here, and then one more thing. Okay, so I want to lay in the beginnings of the color on this rock, and also I feel I can bring these grays all the way into the earth down here. I'm just going to leave a little smidge of dry paper between these things that are wet. All right. But I mostly want to focus my color on this really lovely lavender that I saw before and the peachy yellow, which I kind of see right over here. I think this is also an example of where the camera really shifts the color a little more than, it's a little too light. I think in real life this would be less, it would be a little bit darker of a light. Okay. I'm using a little bit of cobalt now for this lavender kind of blue here, which I kind of want to make a little more purple. And that's another opposite. I'm really thinking a little bit about the opposites of all these yellows, so I want this purple color in. Okay. So I'm going to put this aside and just do one last thing. So here goes. So this one kind of has a similar, this is just going to show you taking this to another level. Just one little thing. And then I shall be done. I'm going to just get some of these darks in and some of the other greens. All right. So I'm going to wet this with water because I'm still not really into the detail yet. I just want to lay all the different colors in. So I really want this green now. Because the yellow's under it, it's going to really glow. This is this nice kind of cooler tone right here. But when everything is laid in well, everything should glow, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is get some kind of glow in here. So I'm going to now just get a little more color here, and then a little more, then maybe done. We'll see. Using a lot of Windsor green with the cad yellow. But see how that now makes that leaf just really pop. Okay, so it's getting better, I think. Let's see. I'm going to take a purple to sharpen this up a little bit. Okay. So purple, red, brown to get the edge of this rock in place. I love mixing greens and browns to get these rich darks, which I want to get maybe right in here. And I love this dark to light that's happening in here as well. So this is pretty much all I'm going to do at the moment. Just one last thing would be to get this a little deeper. It's always something more to do. So I want to also get this really nice, there's some more dark on this wood. The red is the opposite of the green, so I think this is nice to push it. And then there's that nice kind of cast shadow right here. I'm just gonna, yeah, that's good. Okay, I'm done for now. I'm not really done, but I think I'm wearing out my welcome. So I'm going to stop and I will look forward to seeing you this week. Bye.